another week. So welcome to the Charles Billingsley Podcast. I'm Brandon Pickett along with Adam Lancaster and Charles Billingsley.
Oh, wait.
You guys. No, you.
Oh, no, seriously. Hey, yeah, we're on video now, so we can do that.
Yes.
I can make a gesture to you and not have to tell everybody that I'm making a gesture towards you, like we used to when we were just audio.
But you still could because people sometimes just listen to audio.
Oh, okay. So I could do both.
I'm self-conscious about you,
towards you, Adam.
the amount of times you've used the word gesture in the past 30 seconds.
You used the word
specificity
in our last podcast,
which I was.
But that's because we were with the mayor. I think he was trying to really
specific. You're right.
He was very
guys, I can use big words often. It's okay,
and sometimes even make some up.
I like it because
the specificification of your specificities was great.
Thank you.
Oh, goodness. So last week, Stephanie Reed was great, current mayor of Lynchburg, Virginia.
Yes.
She's just a great person. And I love it when people like her get in office because she's just she's a mom who just trying to make a difference.
Wasn't it cool to hear her journey that she wasn't really going to do it, just a poll watcher.
Yeah.
I say we need our poll watchers.
Apparently we need a lot more.
And maybe if more would, we'd have better people coming into politics.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So pretty cool, from poll watcher to mayor.
So, and I want to ask you, Charles, we didn't get a chance to do this on the last podcast, but you've got a lot of stuff coming up this spring. You want to just give our listeners and viewers what's coming up?
Well, Women of Joy season is upon us, so and they're all sold out, which is cool. So if you are a woman and you're joyful,
or in need of joy,
or just a woman in general and want to.
There's no discrimination.
No.
Unless you're a man.
Well, now you're running a real thin line there these days. Adam. Just kidding. Now we still make that.
I don't know how you're going to end this phrase.
We're still
like Michael Scott. Sometimes I start a sentence and I don't really know how it's going to end.
That's the story of my life. So just for the clarity of the sake of things, here at the Charles Billingsley Podcast, we do recognize that there is a definite difference between male and female, and that men don't have babies, but women can. And there's a whole lot of other differences as well, and that God created male and female. So we're just gonna move on from that. But we're pretty set on that.
Yeah.
Feel like it's been that way since the beginning of time. So anyway, what were we talking about?
Women of Joy conferences.
Oh yeah, Women of Joy conferences.
That's how we got there.
That's right. Even though we're men, we do Women of Joy conferences.
Yeah,
because we love it and they're a blast and we just have a great time. And
I get my steps in just fine in the men's room.
Well, because it's usually not in the same building.
Yeah.
But we have, every one of them are sold out. We have 4,000 in Branson, 9,900 in Pigeon Forge, 6,000 in Myrtle. And that's just the spring. And then in the fall, they're already sold out as well. So check it out because you'll want to sign up early for 2024. And who knows, they might have some dropouts and you can jump in. But I know on a few of them, there's a waiting list. But anyway, there's that. There's conferences. There's concerts. We're doing all kinds of stuff. So check the website. What is it again, Adam?
CharlesBillingsley.com.
Yeah, SLEY on Billingsley. And jump in there and find our schedule. And also... there's something else that you guys don't even know about. I'm putting out...
I don't even know about half the concerts that are on the calendar these days.
I'll let you know.
Okay.
But digitally, we are putting out a new record that you guys didn't even know about, and it's called Live in Lynchburg. It is a live concert record of The Shadow of Your Smile when we did it here in Lynchburg with the symphony. So it's not the full concert, but it's 7 songs from the concert.
Okay.
All digital, just on digital.
All digital, yeah. You can download it on Apple Music or Spotify or whatever. And also on YouTube, we're going to be releasing several videos from that over the coming months. So keep your ears and eyes open for that. It's coming soon.
Well, again, welcome to this podcast because we always have incredible guests, guests with incredible stories, backgrounds, and that's, you can learn a lot from each guest by their story and their journey, and you can put that into place. And yours and Day is no different. It's a special guest, Charles. This is a man who's had an incredible background.
Yeah, Robert Day, amazing story. Lives here in our local area. is the CEO of the Patrick Henry Family Services, which started as a boys' home, and now it's expanded into many other things. So, Robert, we're glad to have you. Let's give him an applause.
All right.
Yay.
Thank you so much.
Robert, thanks for joining us today. We love your story. We love who you are and what you do, trying to really just help these kids get out of foster care or nurturing them through foster care, all kinds of stuff that you do. So before we get into what you do, though, can you tell us your story and how you got involved doing this?
Well, I was born in foster care. Literally, my birth, I was immediately in the custody of the state of Tennessee.
Wow.
My 16-year-old mother was in foster care when she was pregnant with me.
Wow.
And when she gave birth, she originally put me up for adoption. It was probably the best decision that she could have made at the time. She's the second oldest of 13 children, deep generational poverty in the mountains of Kentucky. A lot of alcohol abuse, domestic violence, all the worst kind of stereotypes you would think about mountain people back in the early 60s. So she got pregnant with me, and she came into foster care because she was riding in the back seat of a vehicle that was had her mother, my maternal grandmother, in the front seat, and my grandmother's boyfriend, which may have been my mother's dad. I don't really know for sure. But they were all drinking heavily, including my mother. And they were going on a narrow country road, a mountain road. And they came head-to-head with a vehicle going the opposite direction. And this is a narrow mountain road with, you have to back up to the nearest switch, as they would say, wide enough spot so somebody could pass. Neither driver wanted to do that. They get out of the car and an argument breaks out, and another man's throat is slit and thrown over a cliff.
Good grief.
So my mother's pregnant with me in the back, who'd been drinking. Anyway, she goes into foster care, right?
Wow.
They place her in an unwed mother's home in Nashville. That's where I'm born. And she originally put me up for adoption. She was placed back in East Tennessee, closer to her home. But her foster parents found out that I was available for adoption. Good Christian people, love the Lord, couldn't have kids of their own, decided to step into the foster care space. My mom was their first placement. And so they asked the state if they could foster to adopt, is the phrase. And they made a decision that probably wouldn't make today, but I was placed with them. So my first 2 years is in a home where my foster parents are parenting both my mother and I. The story goes, I called my mom Sis when I first started talking because they called her Sis. And
Wow.
but when she turned 18 and aged out of the foster care system, she made a fateful decision that I have regretted my entire life. She took me with her. The adoption didn't take place. In other words, her parental rights were not terminated. She, for some reason, probably in the safety of this home, who knows what it was, but she changed her mind. And so those foster parents could not adopt me. And so I was a child raised by a poor, under-resourced, dysfunctional child who didn't finish high school, didn't have a father in her own life, had a harsh, mean mother. And so she did what a lot of poor single moms do in order to survive. She hooked up with men to help her survive, and they were never the right kind of men that would take care of her or me. And so there was drugs, alcohol, abuse. I was removed and put in foster care for every reason that a child is still placed in foster care today: physically abused, neglected, sexually abused, and sexually exploited. With men and drugs and stuff coming in and out of the house, that's just going to happen. So So when you ask why I'm in this space, I've been in this space my entire life.
Yeah, you've never left it.
I've never left it. So, long story short, those foster parents prayed for me every day of their life. And I know that because at age 10, I was placed back in their home.
Really?
They had prayed that they'd have one more chance to take care of me. And that prayer was answered through child abuse. That's an odd statement, but if you understand the sovereignty of God, it all works out, right? So I was placed back with those folks who just love me, right? I'm 10 years old now, so I'm able to comprehend what's going on. I'm at church every time the doors are open. I have to quote the memory verse of the week before we have a meal, right? I'm at Vacation Bible School. I learn all the books of the Bible, all that stuff. And they knew their day was going to come that I'd be placed back with my mom, so they just were pouring everything they could into me. And I still remember the day that I left and being hugged so tight in tears and saying, we're going to pray for you every day. And I believe that they did. I became a Christian at age 17, summer before my senior year, went to a revival. Because when I left there, I had learned that church was a safe place for me. And I was looking for George and Joanne Ball at any church I could find. The denomination didn't matter. I didn't know the difference, the size of the church, or none of that. I was looking for safety, probably some cookies and Kool-Aid, to be quite frankly, something to eat. And so I was just nurtured through the church.
So when you left your foster parents, the state put you back with your mom again?
Mm-hmm.
But this is when you just started going to church on your own?
Yeah. So I'm mobile now. I'm pretty much on my own. And I would just get up and go, or I'd find out a church was going doing Vacation Bible School in the summer, and I'd go. And
But meantime, there's all of these different people coming in and out of your life.
Still, yeah. Oh,
because
yeah.
of your mom.
Yes.
And so
Who
you're
was
having to deal
at
with all
time,
that.
What, 30 or so?
Pardon?
How old would your mom be then?
Yeah,
About
she'd been,
32?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, because of the goodness and kindness of a lot of Christian people, pastors, youth pastors, coaches, Sunday school teachers, it was never consistent. It was never planned. Nobody would say, I got him now, and I'm going to take care of him until he passes on the next one. It just kind of happened. And there were periods of time where that wasn't happening, and that's when I was usually in foster care because I wasn't being taken care of well. But because of a mentorship of one particular gentleman, I made it to college, made it through college because of his mentorship. And I got a degree in social work. My first job was as a child protective investigator. You know, I was the guy, I got to come in and check on your child, ma'am. I got a report of abuse. And I was removing children and putting them in foster homes, wondering sometimes when I'm on my way home if I had just done more harm than I had done good. A couple of years after doing that, I was investigating some of the foster parents I had put kids with.
Oh, man.
And you just realize the system was just so horribly
So it's
broken.
Yeah.
Right? It was never meant to be. That was not who's supposed to be taking care of these kids, right? And so as I kind of grew in my own understanding of all of this, I decided I was going to be foster parents, and my wife and I became foster parents. I've taught child welfare at an academic level. And finally, I'm getting to do what I believe all of this has been about from the very beginning. God's purpose in all of this and my calling is to make foster care obsolete. Make it so rare and so brief that it's like a landline. Nobody uses it anymore. They exist, but nobody uses it anymore because we created a different model. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a model that calls us back to ancient calling, right? The Hebrews, right? The early church, they understood that it was a gospel imperative to take care of orphans and widows. But the church has given up that space 150 years ago. When the government stepped in, they stepped back, and it has not gone well for anybody since then. Doesn't mean that there are good foster parents out there, and there are good Christian social workers out there doing a lot of good things to try to help in the system. But a bad system will tear up a good person every time. And that's where we're at.
Ooh.
Well, you shouldn't have asked if you didn't want to know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking, okay, where do we start? The beginning of your book, which, by the way, is called Worst of Mothers, Best of Moms, by Robert J. Day. Is it available everywhere on? Can you get it online, or is it only in physical?
It's actually out of
copies?
print now, but you can still find used copies on Amazon, and I think there are some sellers who print on demand, so you could get a new copy from people who are doing that now. Yeah.
Okay. But you begin your book with the phrase the social
problem river.
Social problem river.
Yeah.
I love that word river.
Mm-hmm.
It gives a really great picture. And you were just flying down the middle of that river in 20 feet of water your whole life.
Yep.
So explain for the listeners who don't know how bad this problem is, just how wide and how horribly dirty and gross this river is. Because it when I think about this river, I think of some of those rivers you hear about in China, that are just they're just horrific. And it's because of multiple, I know there's tributaries contributing to this river, the government and mistakes there, horrible parenting, obviously the mistakes and bad decisions of the kids. But when you get all that stuff going down one river, it's hard to stop it.
Yeah.
And it's hard to explain to somebody just how horrific the situation is. Can you give us just a picture of that?
Yeah. There's a lot of tributaries going into that river,
Yes,
right?
there is.
The cultural changes of the last 40, 50 years have probably produced more orphans in this country than we ever had before in the history of our country. We don't call them orphans anymore, but they are orphans biblically.
Give us an example of cultural changes.
Well, I was born in 1964, or 1961, 3 years before the War on Poverty in 1964. So this is the early days of the hippie movement, right? Free sex, rock and roll, drugs, right? We don't need to get married. We can, all these relationships they'll produce kids. One of the worst things for kids, cohabitation, very popular in our culture today, right? We're going to live together to see if it's going to work. Well, usually we'll produce a child and then find out it doesn't work. And here's a child without a parent, usually the father. And the scripture is all about taking care of the fatherless, an orphan. So that's kind of one cultural thing in there. But then you had the War on Poverty coming in at the same time. Hey, we're going to step in, take care of big problems like poverty, single parenthood. We'll give these single moms a subsidy, but dads can't be in the picture or you're not eligible for the subsidy, right? So it discouraged two-parent homes and the role of the father. So government tributaries coming in, messing up that thing with the culture. Even today, things like new introductions of drugs like meth or OxyContin are just destroying families right and left. So you got all these tributaries coming in and just making it worse. And often government policies are making it worse, not better.
You talk in your book about just how drugs were a part of your life and alcohol was part of your life. Even the man, Mr. Day, what was his profession?
Yeah, he was a drug dealer. So my mother was married and 5 times and had a lot of other men in her life, boyfriends and live-ins and overnighters and prostitution. But the only man that my mother was ever married to that was decent enough to give me his last name was a drug dealer. So my name, Robert Day, is from my mother's 4th husband, who was a drug dealer. So just kind of...
Up to that point, you didn't even feel like you had a last name, did you?
No, I didn't. No, in that day you were called a bastard child. I heard that growing up. It was pretty common. So those are some of the tributaries, right? It's going into this. If you want to see a good visual of this, if you go to vision30.org, it's a video that we produce. We call it the Two Rivers video, and it basically says no one gets to decide their family. Right? We're either born into a health safety family or in a broken dysfunctional family. And if you're born into a healthy family, it's like floating down a nice river on a sunny day. But if you're born in the unhealthy river, there's all these obstacles. And so it's a visual picture of that. And then we say, well, how do you get out of that bad river? You do it through a meaningful relationship with the people who are over in the healthy river.
But the people in the healthy river have to want to
Yes.
Reach over.
reach
to the
over.
other. Yeah.
They do. It's hard for the kid in the river to make the path over to the good river.
Yeah.
Somebody from the good river has got to make the path over. And so we call it meaningful relationship. It's that simple. It's not easy, but it's not complex. I mean, we all come to health through a meaningful relationship. It all starts with our relationship with Jesus Christ, right? It's got to be a meaningful relationship. That's how we grow. And it's supposed to have a meaningful relationship with their mother and a meaningful relationship with their father. Well, if those aren't happening, where are these meaningful relationships? In social work, we call it social capital. So the person who helped me get to college used his social capital to get me into college, right? He knew people. He had resources. He had social capital. He used that. I was kept from being arrested one night and put in jail for doing some bad stuff. And I ran to my coach's house, who put me in the basement and lied to the cops that I was there. He used his social capital to say, he's not here. And then gave me a good, strong lecture. Don't you ever do that again. Right? So it may have been 1,000 people doing small but meaningful things in my life that helped me get out. I am the oldest of 14 children that both 14 that my mom and my biological father had. Half of them are already dead. They've all been in jail. They all have drug issues. They have children they're not supporting. And when I look back, also in foster care, when I look back, I say, why have my children now are floating down that healthy river, never experiencing anything that I experienced? And all I can say is it was healthy relationships, mostly faith-based relationships, people in the local church. I don't remember the name of a single social worker, but I can tell you almost every lady in a church or every person who helped me in some significant way.
It's just heartbreaking to think of all the millions of kids that are stuck in that river.
Mm-hmm.
But adults too, because they were just raised in that same system. So then they become adults. They don't know anything different. So they make the same decisions they've always made,
Yep.
producing the same results.
Yeah. So in the video we show if that child goes over the waterfall of adulthood, they'll be forming their own river of dysfunction for their own kids. So we got to either catch them before the river, and there's a lot of groups do that. We're trying to get up to do that prevention or that early intervention to keep right.
Does that happen with the children, or do you work more with adults stuck in the cycle?
You got to do both, right?
We invest. Adults are the ones producing the kids.
Well, yeah, right.
Yeah.
We do a lot of family counseling, because if we don't heal the adults who are having these kids, you're never going to. Rescuing is not enough. Right? You got to break cycles, and that has to do with bringing healing. Right? There's been trauma, dysfunctional things taught. All that's got to change. It's long, hard work, but it's not complicated it's just about making a commitment, right?
All right, I need some encouragement.
Okay.
Give me an example of a family that you've worked with where the cycle has been broken.
Yeah. I can't obviously say names, but I can promise you that there's a bunch that are in various stages of that. Some of them are just now kind of waking up, to other ones who were sending their kids to college despite the fact that they had never gone to college or maybe even finished high school. People who are making commitments not to use drug or alcohol, right? Working on their marriages. So it's happening. It's often a long journey, and that's why you got to walk with people. You can't program this out. It really takes walking.
It's not a 30-day program.
It is not a 30-day. Not if it's been 3 generations worth of dysfunction.
Yeah.
Right? So think about it this way. A poor child, somebody from, particularly from generational poverty, has a 3 in 5 chance they're going to be in foster care. A 3 in 5 chance.
Jeez.
They're going to be in foster care
Just because of
they're
poverty.
poor. The number's 84. Say 84.
84.
That's got a little churchy there, didn't I? Yeah. No, you didn't say it, Charles. Say 84.
Amen. 84, brother.
Look at your neighbor and say,
Look at your neighbor and say 84. That's it right
84?
there.
We got
That's it.
84?
Look at your neighbor.
So 84% of all children in foster care are there because of neglect. And when you break down the numbers, it's inadequate housing, lack of supervision.
In some cases, food. They're starving.
Very preventable reasons.
Simple stuff.
And these folks, usually most of them are single moms, they're caught in the middle of a social welfare industrial complex, right? They get subsidized housing, they got WIC, they got TANF, they got CHIP, they got all these agencies, right, to support her. And every one of them are mandated reporters. Every one of them who should be providing those things that keep her from getting in trouble are the ones reporting her for not having those things.
Oh, man.
So some of it could happen with policy, but in the end, she shouldn't even have to be there if we, as a faith community, or just as decent people in a community, say, I'm going to step into this space. I want to do something about it.
What can you, for those listening, because you hear the problem and you go, okay, thank you so much for painting that picture, the river. I get that in my mind. But now that I know the problem, how can I be part of the solution?
Yeah.
So, and the listeners and viewers here, they're not just in Virginia, they're all over the place.
They are all over the place. Yeah, there's 50 foster care agencies in the country, not a single one of them is doing a good job. So it is everywhere, right? And they're being overwhelmed all the time. And a lot of it, you don't have to join an organization or be part of a group. There are many groups out there doing that. But we used to do a lot better job taking care of our neighbor, or at least know what was happening in our neighbors' lives, because we had relationships with them. And so you would know if this single mom was having problems. So tutor, mentor, right? Our organization has put in a platform in Virginia called Care Portal. Care Portal is a technology that allows the Department of Social Services to place a need, and our Care Portal churches will see that need live and can sign up and say, I got that.
Oh, that's great.
And the church, not the social worker, the church goes to the family and provides that need. And then we at Patrick Henry are trying to keep the connection between that church meeting the need and you developing a meaningful relationship. But we don't want it to be transactional. It starts being as a transaction. But keep showing up.
Have you gotten pushback from the foster care system and the social workers for doing that?
No, because we've worked very hard to show that we are, while we are their toughest critic, we also support them in their work. And so this is how we're supporting them. We're connecting them, not to services that Patrick Henry provides as much as services that people in the community provide.
Can you do that as an individual, or does it have to be a church?
Well, the church has to sign up, and then there's usually a coordinator in the church who will then send out the need to the church, the various groups that might respond to that, a Sunday school group, a mission group, a ladies group.
Is this only in Virginia?
No, it's all over the country. We brought it to Virginia, and we're about 50% of all the counties and municipalities in Virginia who now have access to this.
Okay, so these care portals exist in almost every state through the
Yes.
state. And how can somebody find in their state how to go to this?
Yes.
So first thing you do is you go to your Sunday school teacher or your pastor or somebody in your church who can help facilitate this and say, hey, I want our Sunday school class or our small group or whatever to check out these care portals so that we can provide some needs for these foster children.
Yes.
What would be the process by which they do that then?
Well, we are the implementing agency.
Okay.
So if a church is not currently a Care Portal church, you just contact us.
And us is? Tell them
Patrick
how.
Henry Family Services. So
Okay.
you can go to patrickhenry.org, or you can call us at our number, which is, right,
Okay.
376-2006.
376-2006?
Yes.
And that's area code 434.
Yes, thank you. I always forget to
Yeah,
mention
well,
that.
local stuff a lot of times. But we have lots of people from all kinds of different states who I think would be, and a lot of them are women, our listeners, and I think to know that this is out there, they can get a group of moms together and through their church go through these care portals and really make a difference in the
So
lives
anybody
of some
right
of these
now
kids.
can go to careportal.org.
Okay.
They can look up their state, see if it's there. They
Oh,
can even
good.
look up their municipality. They can even see the needs flowing through their lives.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Constantly. And it's everything from, people are putting roofs on on houses. They're helping mom get a secondhand car. They're paying utility bills. They're doing babysitting. They're just showing up. And
It's amazing I've seen some of those needs, and some of them are like, especially when school starts, they don't have school supplies and school books and school clothes.
Most of it's very basic,
It's
simple
very basic
stuff.
that anybody can do.
But remember, it's not about the stuff. The stuff is our chance to develop a relationship,
Oh, that's good.
right? That is the key to changing this.
So back to a little bit of your story. You went to college. Were you still in East Tennessee when you went to college?
Yep. Ended up going to Cumberland College, now called the University of the Cumberlands, Southern Baptist College there in Kentucky. It was only 12 miles down the road, but it felt like a whole different world, right, when I went there. I was not a good student. I barely made it through high school, really first in my family.
Well, you had a few little distractions going on
did.
there, Robert.
But I survived by being likable. I just played the orphan game,
Yeah.
Please, ma'am, can I have a sandwich? Please, ma'am, could you give me a passing grade on this test?
Yeah.
Essentially,
It's like the good guy discount. You
It
got
was-
the good
yeah,
guy.
could I just-
Yeah, I'm a
yeah,
good
could I
guy. You want to get a discount? Yeah.
Do you try that, Adam?
Every once in a while.
Yeah,
Hey, you never know. I mean, somebody's
never
going to be like,
know.
yeah,
You're
I
right.
like that.
You're
Here's
right.
an extra 10%.
Come on now, Charles. You didn't have the little smiley discount?
Oh, I mean, I've used it a few times.
Exactly. We do
how
what we
did-
got to do. We do what we got to do.
So how did you get from college to now Patrick Henry?
Yeah. So from college, I went to the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, where I got a master's in social work and a master in divinity. I've pastored and social worked. I've had one foot in two different worlds for a long, long time. Now my foot's pretty much in the social work world, but through ministry. And so I've just always been in kind of this child welfare space in one way or the other. And in 2010, I saw this ad, and I applied it, and I'm here.
Wow. That's awesome. So, there's a question we like to ask everybody.
Okay.
That, I feel like you're one of those guys that's doing exactly, your whole life has been about this, and I feel like your whole life is going to remain about this. But in that context, is there something, if money wasn't an object and time wasn't an issue, is there something left in your life that you just really feel like you were made to do and you want to accomplish?
So I had one other piece of that, and you were guaranteed success.
Ooh, okay, I like that. Okay.
Right? So you've just removed all the barriers. What would I do?
Yeah.
I'm doing it now. I
Figured you'd say that.
want to make foster care obsolete.
That's
I
awesome.
want to make it not necessary.
And the answer to that is the church.
It's
So to recap, because you've hit it at a couple different angles, and Brandon, you asked a question about it. So for listeners, maybe they're listening to this in the car, may not have access to show notes or whatever the case may be. The next step, if someone's listening to this and they feel like, I want to make a difference, what's the best next step for them to do?
I think the easiest thing to do is go to patrickhenry.org, because they're going to see a page on Care Portal. They're going to see something about our camp.
Oh, good.
They're going to see Safe Families for Children. They're going to understand about kinship navigation. They're going to see the counseling and all the various locations where they could tap into good Christian counseling. So that's a good place to start, right? And you're going to find something there that you could probably relate to and say, I want to kind of get involved there. That's the best place to start.
That's good. That's what
Perfect.
I'm looking for. I want people to easily access what their next step might be.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to go from zero to adoption.
Yeah.
No, well, and there's a lot of people who just can't adopt. I mean, like I even look at my situation, and it's not a financial hindrance. It's not a space issue. It's just that I travel so much. I'm not sure I'd want to leave my wife alone with foster, especially older ones, at first.
For weeks at a time,
yeah. So, and I know I have a couple buddies who fostered children coming up, and he was just health-wise couldn't do anymore physically. So some people are just limited in some areas, but they can do other things. Like through this Care Portal,
Or they could write a nice check to Patrick and your Family
or
Services.
they can write a great check. Seriously, I mean,
Well, and there's different ways. So the church that we're all a part of here, like we have a whole shop for foster families.
There you go.
So that if we want to the goal is to remove barriers from our people at the church to get into the system, be a positive influence in the system, and we're going to help you. Okay, you don't have a high chair. Come by. We've got a high chair.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
We've got clothes. Our family just moved, and I've taken about 4 truck beds worth of stuff over there that we've grown out of, but some family can use.
So you bring up a good point. Churches need to be a foster family-friendly church in order to encourage these families to step in it. They need to know they have support. I spoke at a church locally, and I won't name the church, but after I presented, a mom came up to me just in tears and had a herd of kids around her, which obviously she was fostering. And she said, the church just told me today that I can't bring my kids back to Sunday school because they're too disruptive. So she decided to make a choice between her church and
her
this
kids.
other things that she's felt called to do. And so churches can learn how to be foster friendly, right? Having these safe spaces. I understand that there's going to be different kinds of disruptions, but you can learn some techniques to also help with that. So I'm glad you're in that space, and it's a friendly place for families to say yes to this.
Can I ask you one more question?
Please.
And this is pretty personal, but a lot of people who are abused growing up, physically, sexually, they see things they should never see in a lifetime, let alone before they're 10 years old. How are you able to overcome that and even now still not deal with those demons of the past? I'm pretty confident I know the answer to that, but I would like for you to tell our viewers and our listeners.
So CEO usually stands for Chief Executive Officer, but I often tease my staff and say it stands for Chief Executive Orphan. Then my role really at Patrick and Family Services is to remind everybody of the pain of what that means every day. So there's an urgency about the work. So it's leading from the heart more than leading from the head. But a lot of research now on about trauma, childhood trauma. And you can go to the website, just Google ACEs. It stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. There's a 10-question survey. And if you answer yes, it's worth a point. So you could possibly have 0 to 10. And these are all things that are now scientifically connected with mental, emotional health, physical health, and things that happen to kids in their childhood. So my ACE score is 9 out of 10. There's only one of those things that I didn't experience. And I already know, in terms of odds, what that means for my life, for my health, et cetera. So how do you get out of that, right? So for me, I said in the beginning, my physical rescue was my meaningful relationship with Christ. And he is my counselor, my healer. But that often happens at the hands of people who've been given the gift of healing by therapy, by counseling, by working through, right? Our body actually remembers the trauma. Our brains are rewired. We think differently. And so what does the Bible say? Be what? Transformed by the renewing of your mind. It starts with a prayer at an altar, but it often happens through sitting side by side with a counselor and saying, let's rethink that. You are not what they told you you were. You are loved. You are accepted, right? So you can hear it from a pulpit, but sometimes you still got to work that out. And for a long time, I tried to pretend that everything was okay. Unfortunately, our churches sometimes encourages pretending that everything is okay.
Keep doing that, yeah.
Rather than just being real. So for my own sake of my marriage and for my being a good dad, I finally just gave up and said, I need some help.
I tell you, I'm so glad you were here. We don't talk about this enough. We don't actually deal with the realities of what this is enough. And there's so many hundreds, thousands, and thousands and thousands that are dealing with this. But I know that what I love about you is that you're not trying to fix the system. You're trying to make it obsolete. And so that's amazing. And again,
I'm not going to spend another minute of my time or a dollar of my tax dollars trying to prop up a broken system that chews up families and kids.
So again, we're going to put this in the show notes, but it's patrickhenry.org.
patrickhenry.org.
And just go there.
Yes.
And we'll put the number there. Also, Care Portal, if you want to know more about that, you can go to Care Portal, that website as well. We'll put that in the show notes. But Robert, thank you for your time, for just sharing this with us.
Thank you.
Thank you guys
very
so much.
Thank you.
And Adam, anything else?
As always, if you came across this and you want more information about kind of what we do, there's charlesbillingsley.com. And you can check us out on YouTube if you happen to be listening to this. There's also a now video component. And as always, subscribe and get updates each week about fantastic guests like Robert that we get to visit with.
By the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, we're filming this from the barn.
From
the
the barn.
Billingsley barn.
Actually, Adam had a great
at
name
Billingsley
for
Farm.
this.
It's called, well, the barn has a name, but what'd you name it?
The Billingsley Bougie Barn.
Oh, no. The barn is called Bella Vita.
And you just made my point.
The good life.
You just made my point. Thank you.
That's not bougie.
If your barn
That's
has
not
an
bougie.
Italian name,
Bella Vita.
if your barn has an Italian name,
That's bougie?
yes. I'm just going to go ahead.
I know
sounds
all
like
the
a-
Italians are offended.
That
Hello?
sounds like Jeff
I
Foxworthy.
just called
offended.
them bougie.
I'm offended.
I just called them bougie.
Even though I'm not Italian.
If your barn is named Bella Vita, you just might be bougie.
It stands for the good life.
All right. And
Yeah,
so
beautiful life.
from the barn, thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
We'll see you later.
Was made